Hello and welcome back to another episode of Boys Gone Wild. I said I wasn't going to do one this week because it was just confusing to know what was the right thing to do in these circumstances. But I messaged my good friend Phileo and he was ready to talk. So how you doing, Phileo? You all right?
Good, man. I'm relaxed.
Yeah. How's lockdown for you? How's the kid?
Kid's easy, man. Because she's only like 11 months, so she's not. She's
not chatting shit yet.
Yeah, no. I mean, she does, but I don't understand it, so I don't care.
Okay, yeah.
It's like if a French guy is talking shit, I'm like, that's cute, dude.
Yeah.
Go for me.
But now you get to spend more time, I guess, with her as well.
Yeah, which is like every parent's dream, right?
Yeah.
Well,
not every parent.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to say. But then I was thinking about kids who are older. Yeah. And I was like, now you finally find out that your kid's an asshole.
Yeah, that's going to be. Are you looking forward to? Do you think your kid's going to be an asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, because me and her mom are assholes. There's no way. Yeah. She's either going to be the nicest person ever.
What, to like rebel against her parents?
Yeah. Or she's going to be a twat.
So like her punk rock phase growing up will be being nice.
Yeah.
That'll be her rebellion.
And I'm trying to get her to smoke weed and she's just like, oh, messing your brain up. Oh my God. Have a drink.
But yeah, I've been meaning to get you on the it's annoying that I'm actually getting you on the podcast in these times because there's so much we could talk about. Because I think I think the first couple of times we met was when I was doing the only really couple of gigs I've done on the black circuit in London. I think I ran into you.
Yeah.
I was always the white guy on the bill, and that was sort of my act.
That's how we do it. We black shows get one white guy, and white shows get one girl. That's how we bounce out. One woman comic and one black guy.
Yeah, I went. It was at Lighthouse Comedy, and I remember it was a very hot day, and I was wearing shorts, and it just it was glaring how white I looked.
I remember that. Actually.
So this is what you meant by an urban gig. I didn't really know what that meant. I thought you meant it just be in the centre of London. I didn't know I'd be the only white guy on. It'd be an hour-long DJ set to begin with. It's good to be here. But no, there's loads of. I think we have a lot of shared interests in history and film and stuff like that. And there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, you had a joke. You had a really good joke. God damn, was it? It wasn't like Ottoman Empire. You had some very niche joke.
Was it about the Great Wall of China or?
Maybe, yeah. It's something like where I was like, "This is so funny." No, it's Nazis.
Yeah, Nazis. Yeah, I've got. It's just because I look like if you look like this, you've got to be having. You got to have some Nazi looks because I really.
You have to do it.
It's getting more Nazi as it goes by.
But it's so niche. Yeah. Like when you drop the Hugo Boss line and all this other stuff. I don't want to give the whole joke away, but when you did it, I was like, I was like, you have to know.
Yeah, exactly.
And just social shit to get this joke. So half the crowd was like, oh, and the other half was like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I mean, the annoying thing is Nazis, they had their aesthetic was kind of dope. Do you know what I mean? And it's quite annoying. It's annoying that they kind of fucked that up for everyone else because there's I think they might have been awful people, but it looked pretty cool.
That's why I was like, black people would be dope Nazis because we love a good outfit. Like we love a good outfit.
Shiny boots. Yeah, that's because you're like, look,
they dress like rappers.
It's boots, like, look, Nazis, I know you hate me as a race, but I gotta respect the swag.
Right? Gold and tassels and boots is great.
But yeah, I think because I saw the stuff you've been posting during this whole period. And so when I was talking to you about choosing a Boy Gone Wild, there's a lot of people in history to choose, but I suggested Fred Hampton because, to be honest, I didn't know who he was. So I did a bit of research before doing this podcast, and the reason why I think it's probably best to talk about him. The focus to be about him more than Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, whoever, is because you didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was.
Well, that's what it's about. Is if people don't know him, they probably know even less. You know, like there's so many lesser known. Like you said it, but there's so many lesser known civil rights leaders, and just in general, like. I was having a conversation with someone about Helen Keller. And they were like, I don't know who the fuck Helen Keller is. And it was this woman, and I was like, be a feminist. And she was like, yeah, but who's Helen Keller? I was like, she's blind, deaf, and mute. Yeah. And was like the ultimate fighter for people's rights and shit. And it's like this whole great document. I learned about it as a kid. Yeah. But there's a whole great documentary on her. And I showed it, and she was just like, holy shit. I was like, this person blind, deaf, and mute and still managed to get people's rights. Like...
Annoyingly, because it's so her being blind, deaf, and mute, it does mean she has a lot of punchlines, and a lot of the way I found out about her is because you can't have those three and not be used in certain jokes. But,
exactly. But yeah, Fred's my idol. Like when I was a kid, growing up, where I grew up, we didn't really have a lot of my neighbors and the kids I grew up with in my neighborhood didn't really know much about Black history. They didn't Martin Luther King.
Sure.
Some of them probably knew Malcolm X.
Yeah.
They know, different leaders, Jesse Jackson, everybody knows fucking Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. But we don't know, they didn't know a lot. And so my mom would always, she was down with the Panthers, and my mom would always be
Your mom was with the Panthers?
Yeah, she was always with them, and she would be like, yo, and a lot of the freedom fighters, that's what she was about. And she would just be like, all right, when you come home, you had homework from school. And then she was like, to keep us like off the streets, out of the streets, she was like, all right, now you got more homework. And I was like, take a figure in history and write about them, or learn some new scientific, principle, or learn something with math. And I was just like, okay, let me just do these assignments. I'm going to write a report about Martin Luther King. She's like, nah, nice try. Pick somebody else. And so she had these books and all this stuff about people. And I saw this guy, Fred
Even
Hampton.
I've written a report about Martin Luther King. Like,
that's like the go-to. It was like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
And there was this book she had about the Panthers and all this stuff. She had this book, basically is a book on COINTELPRO.
Okay.
Which is what the FBI did in order to bring down the Panthers and all these people. That's how they killed.
All of that. It came out much later in the public record.
Yeah. Well, now it's like people go, well, yeah, we did it. But then they were like, well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like this book on COINTELPRO, and I was just like, okay, what is that? I don't know what the fuck that is. I thought, this is crazy. It was a black book, and it just said like COINTELPRO and something under it. And I thought it was like a rap group, like a book on like I was like, because Public Enemy has like shit like that. Like the aesthetic was like KRS-One. I was like, this might be dope.
There is a link.
I'll read this.
If we're talking about dope aesthetics politically, Black Panthers are up there with the Nazis.
That's what I'm saying.
Two separate sides of the spectrum. If only they could.
Outfits.
Only if they could discuss. If they stuck it to purely fashion, I think they'd have a lot more mutual respect.
Oh, it'd be great. Yeah, if it was just two fashion things, it would be great. So we did it, and I did this report. And they talked about Fred Hampton, and so I started looking at books and started looking. You used to be able to go to the library and rent like documentaries and shit, and news reports, or like
before the
internet, news footage and shit. Yeah, before the internet. So I didn't have, so I go there, I get these cassettes, and I'm watching this dude give these speeches. And my mom has this giant painting of Malcolm X in her house. We've had it since we were kids.
Yeah.
So she's always been like Malcolm X, pointing us in his direction, Black Panther direction.
Because he's quite
militant.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Because he's, with the little research I've been doing recently, he's got quite a different tack to Martin Luther King. There was like almost a schism with the approach to what they wanted.
And they butted heads for a bit until they came together. But he's got a different approach. His approach is Nation of Islam approach, which is any means necessary. It's essentially closer to the Panthers approach, which is let's educate everybody, let's do everything. The Panthers just didn't include Islam and all the rules that came with Islam. They just were like, look, we gonna come together. You might be gay, brother. You might be Christian. You might be Muslim, but we can all come together.
Yeah.
So I was drawn more towards that because I looked around my group of friends, and that's what it was collective of straight Muslim. Maybe this guy's Christian. Maybe this guy's not religion. Maybe this family background is military.
Was this you growing up? Yeah.
Yeah. So even though we grew up in the ghetto, everybody had these different types of being
Did you
black.
have those, but you were all black though?
Right. Yeah. So as far as the Nation of Islam had, it was like you had to be Muslim. The first thing is you got to be Muslim. It's the Nation of Islam. You can't be like, all right, well, I'm going to be Jewish in this.
Okay.
And they're like, no, you have to be Muslim, black Muslim. You have to be convert. And so I wasn't against that at all. I had tons of Muslim friends, but I was just like, when I was reading about Fred Hampton, his message was they would take the phrase power to the people, and he would say power to the people. And when I say that, I mean power to all the people.
Yeah.
And I mean, poor, because they killed him so early on because he was doing what Martin and Malcolm were doing, but he was 21. He's 20, 19,
it's crazy.
18.
He's 2 years 16. Younger than me. It's insane.
16. Going to these places and galvanizing all kids from all colors.
Yeah.
And saying, like, look, we have a problem of racism in this country. and we need help with that. But
Yeah.
while we're doing that, we can work on classism, we can work on sexism, we can work on all these things. He was bringing groups together that wouldn't even talk. Like there was like radical poor white kid groups who were like, we want to not be working class white kids, and then it was like radical Native Aboriginal American and radical Latina, and he was like, look, we're going to bring all this together. Listen to me. We're going to all come together, work together, do something. Because one of his most famous meetings is this one. I'll post it. I'll send it to you. You can post it later. You can read it. You can watch it.
Please,
he's giving this speech.
I'll put it in the link. I'll put all these.
Yeah, we'll put it in the link. He's giving this speech and he's talking to all colors and creeds, and he was like, they're going to come after you next.
Poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panthers Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We stood up and said we're not going to fight reactionary pigs and reactionary state's attorneys like this and reactionary state's attorneys like Hanrahan with any other reactions on our part. We're going to fight their reactions with all of us people to get together and have an international proletarian revolution. Right on. Right on.
So he's smart in knowing if it's just black people,
they've
already been trying to tear this down. But if I get everybody to understand that the plight is ours, but it ain't going to just be ours, because once we're oppressed and done, essentially when we were slaves, his ideals to me, because I don't know if he actually ever said this, but what I got from it later growing up thinking, when we were slaves, then we didn't count as people. So we weren't even oppressed. We were chattel.
Property.
But then the poor Irish and Scottish or whoever the fuck came, they were the lower, because the thing used to be no niggers, no Irish, no dogs. You know what I mean? So we would have that, and so we weren't even in the equation. But the Irish and the Scottish were getting treated like fuck. And they were like, and the Italian immigrants. So there's an article by, and we'll put this up too, is by Medium, and it's called How White People Got Made. And essentially it's British American propaganda. Saying like they had these like, you know, drawings of like early, you know, like the early human drawings and shit. But they had a graph
like
of like,
paintings and that.
Here's a British man, like he looks great. And then here's a fucking Irish guy. He's got like the low sloping brow, and the Italian guy's got it, but he's got the wide jaw. So it's like, you look like more of a caveman, but we're all still white. And then they brought it under that umbrella. So Fred Hampton was like, that's just the trick that they played on you. The trick that they played on racists in America is, a racist dude in America, if he's $1 billion corporation guy, I expect that. But the dude who lives down the street from me, who works at the gas station, how the fuck are you saying you hate me from doing something? The government is fucking you in the ass. So Trump supporters, I look at them weird, because I'm like, you fell for the trick. You fell for the trick that somehow I'm your enemy, and as long as you fight me, then we can't have racial equality, which is a big fucking distraction. And that's what it is, a bunch of fucking Trump supporters, and not even just Trump, before Trump, Reagan, before him, like from Clay, like fucking 1700, 1800, 16, 19, 1865. People who were just arguing with black people were trying to, you know, it's just this racist rhetoric that's going on as a distraction. So Fred Hampton's thing was, let's get the people together. We will lead with the Black Panthers. And he was with the Black Panthers and being like, you can be an ally. A lot of white people march with the Panthers and stuff. There's a lot of footage of that. But you can be an ally, but you can't be a leader of the Panthers.
No.
So
it's got to come from like, within the community.
Right. And a big thing he would say, or what I took from it is, you go back, poor white guy, poor Asian guy, poor Latin American guy, Latinx, I think they want to be called now. You go back and you tell your people, because they don't want to hear from us. It's like women.
Yeah.
When women are like, oh my God, I'm getting, all these men are fucking shit, and they're telling you and me, it's then our job to go back to other men and police other men in a way. Like, hey man, don't grab girls by the breast. They don't like that shit. And your friend's like, oh, what do you mean? Well, I was talking to some women and apparently they don't enjoy it. Oh, really? And your friend is more liable to absorb that information from you, a dude who's not going to be like, women and men are trash. I'm just like, look, dude, maybe just don't grab tits. Like, and then we just having a conversation over a beer, and that gets into his head quicker than he's not going to want to hear Fred Hampton speak on racism. No white person really wants to hear Malcolm X unless you're like not racist. If you're not racist, you'll listen to Malcolm X, and even then, it's hitting. You're like, ooh. Yeah. Martin is the easy and not
he's
easy.
The friendly. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Accessible Christian.
Yeah. Because you're just like, ooh, him or...
I mean, he's a Christian preacher. He fits in a lot with more with the American system.
So then how many white Muslims do you think were in America during that time, right?
Not many. Yeah.
So even so now, true. Right, it's like 6.
I mean, it was bold how Malcolm X was so unapologetically himself while also trying to achieve something so radical. But with the brief study I did of Fred, it struck me his intersectionality before that was even a term, and as a socialist, I certainly linked a lot with a lot of what you're saying, where it was like, obviously we need to focus on the black community because that's the most violently oppressed at the moment. But don't you see how this is? Look how many people are oppressed, and they've tricked you into thinking you're not oppressed. And basically, as opposed, because I feel it feels like the most successful tactic to bring about radical change is making all oppressed groups realize they're oppressed and realize they're in the same boat. Because then, if everyone who's oppressed realized, then the people in power would have no real recourse because there's just too many.
Which is the end goal.
Yeah.
But in order to, a lot of people go, well, the argument is let's get rid of classism first, and it's like you can't.
It's not. They're linked. They're fully linked.
Yeah,
it's not a first, second, third.
No, you can't get rid of. You can't just say let's focus on classism. It's because, a poor white guy knows he's not a rich white guy.
Yeah.
He knows classism exists, but he's so amped up off of racism he can't even focus on that. He hates rich white guys. Trump won because he lied to these people who were easily fooled already by this big trick. So he said, I'll just keep playing this trick, and that's how we win.
Yeah.
And so in order to tackle class, you have to go through racism first.
And you have to appeal to those voters as well.
Exactly.
You have to appeal to the Trump voters. It's not
They
good
don't
enough.
want to hear from you because you're black. So they're not going to be your friend to then go attack classism. They're going to be anti-you. So once you fix the racial aspect of the bullshit and the hatred in the system, if you have a awareness of how your privilege is there, you can adjust your behavior accordingly, and then the system starts to be anew. You get a new system in place, and then you go, okay, with that new system in place, not only are we all coming together now, but now we kind of realize we have so much more in common. All that other shit, rhetoric that people say, and all the we hold hands, we all eat chicken. Who gives a fuck? Now you go, well, classism is what's been keeping us apart, and we got to get these billionaires and these millionaires who aren't helping. There's a lot of billionaires and millionaires who help, who are just making us, pitting us against each other. Now we have some type of utopian thing we're working on. But until we fix the rate, because
it's going to be messy as well. I think people expect results as if it's going to be utopia tomorrow. Like there's going to be huge mistakes. The wrong people will get into power. It won't work for years. But it's about.
It's going to be bad because you're always going to have, just like what you have with the Panthers, just like what you have with Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton, I'll talk about it in 1 second, but I'll end on what I was saying is once you start to aim down that path in that direction, it's just easier. But as long as someone's arguing the fact of, I'm like, oh shit, Black Lives Matter, they're like, oh, but, and it's like, as long as you want to say, but we can't come together on anything else if you're ignoring the thing that's happening to me, that's most pressing to me at the moment, which is my life. And then you want to say, but, and someone was like, when people say all lives matter, my thing is, okay, so if that is true, then why aren't you at the Black Lives Matter rally?
Exactly.
Doesn't that fall under your banner of what you're saying? So if you're a humanist, then you care about all humans. So if you say all lives matter, then you care about all lives. So you especially should be there. So that's why I go, when people say all lives matter, you're not saying it because you believe it, you're saying it because you're racist. And you don't want the attention.
But also, doesn't it show what you were saying before, that a Trump voter saying all lives matter perfectly sums up the kind of misunderstanding of who's being oppressed and who's not being oppressed?
Yes.
It perfectly sums it up. Because as racist as all lives matter is, it's also ignorant and naive to a point where it's just, because it's not like a racism where they understand it fully and they hate black people nonetheless. It's like, you have your whole worldview is so warped that you think this is a fair thing to say.
Yeah, you think because of your perception of reality.
Yeah.
And people go, well, my family was poor Irish immigrants. And it's like, dude, yeah, but you were considered a human being. And they didn't burn down Irish neighborhoods in America when they became affluent and started to get some wealth. They didn't go and just shoot and lynch and do all these things over and over because the Irish were participating in it. So you go, your family came here poor, but they were still participating in the oppression of my people. So I can understand that if you came here poor and you say, well, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. Yeah, because you also were using those boots to step on my neck. So had you not been doing that and not assisting these American, British, or whatever the fuck during that early time, had you not been in assistance with them Irish guy and Italian guy, whatever, then we would be in the same spot because you would have been helping us and we would have been helping each other. But that's not what happened. And so that's what, like with Fred Hampton, is like what you said is we're going to get a lot of shit leaders. We're going to get a lot of people who
all revolutions are messy.
Yeah, and that's because there has to be some vetting process behind who is joining and who is speaking and who is doing these things, because a lot of people want popularity and fame, and then a lot of the other person wants money, and they are willing to accept that, or money, or whatever it is, comfortable life or whatever, to tear down the other organizations. That's how Fred Hampton was killed. He got killed because they say, the guy who was on duty, who's supposed to be his watch guard, went to the bathroom quickly, and that's when the FBI came in. And
on purpose?
Yeah, Was he
bribed?
The thing is that he was sitting there with a shotgun, I think, and he was asleep or something happened and killed this guy. Okay. But they switched shifts. I believe I might be wrong about that part actually, but look that up. Somebody verify that. But he was killed in his bed, Fred Hampton. They shot him. You saw how, I don't know if they showed the pictures, but they just massacred him as he slept.
Yeah, next to his girlfriend.
Next to his sleeping girlfriend. And this is how you know it's a targeted hit. She didn't die. No, she didn't, right? No, a lot of people.
She got injured.
She got injured. A lot of people in the house died, but this is.
They weren't aiming for her.
No, they were unloading on this guy, and so the same thing with Malcolm X. The guy who gave Malcolm X mouth-to-mouth resuscitation at the Audubon Ballroom was a police officer, undercover NYPD.
Okay.
Who was his security guard, and we don't know if Malcolm knew that or not, but that was his security guard. So there's all this infiltration always of people trying to come in and do things. So.
And it comes out so much later that you can't hold the state to account. It's the same.
There's
with all the stuff that happened during the Cold War in Nicaragua, in Vietnam, all over the world. We get in Indonesia, we get released all these information about how America create these revolutions, the puppet states, the excessive corruption. But because the people aren't working at the CIA or FBI anymore, it's so easy just to sweep under the rug and not change anything.
It's like now if they came out and was like, Bush, the government during Bush was behind 9/11. Like right when Bush dies, or whoever the fuck, Colin Powell, whoever, everybody, Dick Cheney, they're all dead now, right? Or they're so old, they're like 90, and it's like, what are you going to throw?
Yeah, exactly.
90-year-old, by the time you prove it, he's dead. And he's an ex-president. It's like hard to go after, so... By the time that comes out, if that's the thing, I don't delve into it as much, but then it's like, well, who do we hold accountable? Because that government is how many years old now? Like none of those people are in power. None of those people work. We've switched hands like 3 times or twice. We switched hands twice, whatever. But by the time that happens, we'd have switched hands 3-4 times, and now it's out. Like now it's out about the Vietnam War. That shit was just fucked. It was all some bullshit, right? About America going and all that shit bullshit. Pretty much every war we've done outside of the fucking Civil War, it's just been horseshit. World War II, I guess, we were like, we're just gonna join in. So anything after World War II,
even the
bullshit.
Civil War, the only reason that the North would even consider ending slavery is because they industrialized.
Yeah, that was it.
It wasn't like they were like woke or like this is how we should treat other people. It was more like I want black people to be working on the factory floor, not plantations.
Everybody considers Lincoln this cool hipster president because of his fucking beard.
He's got mutton chops.
Yeah, it's like, dude, but
you could see him making a coffee. He's got his own special.
He's an asshole. He didn't care. Frederick Douglass. So the reason our Black History Month in America is February is because that's when allegedly 1865, some point in February, that's when the slaves were the Proclamation, I'm losing my shit, was signed. And also Frederick Douglass's birthday was in February, but we don't know the day because he was a slave and who gives a shit about his goddamn birthday. And so he came to Lincoln with the idea like, hey man, so I've been free and been doing all this abolitionist work, and you know who I am or whatever. We never met, but if you want to win this war, take away the free labor workforce, making all the weapons, doing everything for the South. Otherwise, you can get mangled. And extend to slaves. If you fight for the Northern Army, you automatically free. And he's like, yeah. And of course, how many black people was like, take me. I would love to start shooting people in the face for this. And so that's what that was. Actually, Drunk History? You know the show Drunk History?
Yeah.
Don Cheadle and Will Ferrell do one about that event. And Don
really?
Cheadle is Frederick Douglass and Will Ferrell is Lincoln. It's
great. Is it a good
hilarious.
one? Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Some
it's hilarious.
of them are brilliant. Yeah.
Some of them are great, yeah. So, but yeah, back to Fred. He was doing what Martin and Malcolm and all these others were Bob Marley, all these people were doing by coming out and speaking and doing whatever. But he had the ability to do what none of them could do. Like Malcolm couldn't get a lot of whites or Asians or other people to really listen. Maybe he got some South Americans and some other people against, communists to listen. Martin had a couple of whites and some Jewish leaders, but they were all Christian.
Martin had a dream.
Yeah, exactly, right. He had those. Some of them were like, all right, we'll march with you, white guys. White guys will march, and Jews will march with you, dude, get beat. Yeah. So that was kind of working. But there wasn't a real, and it's not offensive to what was going on, but there wasn't a real plan of action. Like Nation of Islam was like, we want this. We need to do this. We want this and this.
And so that's
Same
Malcolm X.
Sorry,
just to clarify for myself and probably the listeners, the Nation of Islam, that's Malcolm X's utopia. Do you mind telling me more about that? Because I didn't quite understand that. Because I know he was a Muslim. I know he went to Mecca. But what's the Nation of Islam?
So quick way to do it, basic way of doing it. Malcolm X was Malcolm Little. He was a criminal.
Okay.
And he had, he had a very bad life before that, oppressive life and stuff. He was a criminal, and he went to prison. He got caught, went to prison. In prison, he did what happens to a lot of black men is they found Islam because of the peacefulness and the what unity, it requires, the discipline, and the unity. And so he found that through a teacher, and the teacher was like, but Islam to the Nation of Islam is black Muslims in it. They are saying it's the right religion for black people. It's one of our original faiths. So it dates back to Africa, and they look at it like that, and they look at, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was.
Well, because there's North Africa, but did it belong in sub-Saharan Africa, like Ethiopia and stuff?
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, if you look into Islamic culture,
I guess so.
Stuff,
yeah.
Yeah, if you look into it, even before Arabs were in North Africa, when North Africa was just darker people. And
Christianity is so whiteified that it probably doesn't feel as
exactly. But when North Africa and East Africa was dark people, like if you Google original people of Sudan and original people of Morocco, they're dark as hell.
The Nubian mountains around there, the Nubian people.
Exactly. Nubians ruled over Egypt longer than the Egyptians. So look at that. And then you see the Arabs came in later, but they were Muslims. Well, it actually, a great way is Spanish history. When we look at old Spanish paintings, they have the Moors.
Yeah.
Who are these dark black Muslims. They're all African Muslims. And so they
one of
say
the few times Europe's been colonized by non-whites.
Even Jesus, the guy who brought the gold or whatever he brought was a black Muslim dude, one of the three kings. Yeah. So, but that they always paint it that way. It's one kind of sandy guy, one white guy, and then one black guy. And so, let me hold up.
Positive discrimination. Yeah. They wanted to quote as full.
Right, yeah. So
on the three kings.
So what ends up happening, like Neapolitan ice cream. Right? So what it is the Nation of Islam, and I don't want anyone who's listening, please look up the Nation of Islam fully. Don't just go on any site. Go to their site, and then you can look at Wikipedia, and then you look at Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan, and then you get an understanding of them. Don't take third-party information about any organization, especially like that, because you get bits and pieces in a lump summary of something that you want to expand and understand the whole thing. And so the Nation of Islam, black militant Muslim group, they want to be, back then they were just like, we just want good sitting for black people. We want education, all the free stuff. We actually even, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was the guy who was in charge at that point, he was even like, look, man, American government, if you want, you can give us some money. We go back to Africa, but you got to set us up.
And that sort of happened in a vague way with Liberia, but that was
exactly. They were like, set us up, give us this.
It was such a disaster. It feels like
it was bad.
It wasn't the right.
No, it was real bad.
Because do you mind if I pivot slightly? Because it's interesting.
Go for it.
We spoke a little bit because you came and did the podcast in our studio a couple of times, and we had a couple of interesting conversations about the difference between black comedians in the UK and black comedians in America. Obviously, you're American, but you've lived in the UK for a while now. And the big thing you notice with African American comedians is that they're all just black, and where they came from is America, and because they're slaves, the documents of where they came from have been destroyed. They've been there longer than basically all white people, apart from maybe a couple of white people in Boston, maybe.
We've been there the longest.
Way longer than the Irish, the Scottish.
Which is why we go like, why would you tell us to go home?
You go home. You've taken their home, and it's not clear. And that's partly why Liberia probably didn't work, because it's like there was no connection. But then in Britain, because our slavery was outsourced to the Caribbean and away from the actual country, the black population, the Afro-Caribbean populations, normally come through things like Windrush, the Windrush generation. So every black person you meet in London has a second identity, which is where they came from, which is Jamaican, which is Nigerian.
When I first got here, especially when I visited and stuff, people would be like, where you from? Like, Africans never ask, where am I from? Like, if I speak, they immediately go American. He don't know what part of Africa. He's mixed. Maybe he's a couple of mixed, whatever. Maybe he might be like Godfrey, whose parents are Nigerian.
Sure.
The comedian Godfrey, and he knows my parents are Nigerian, but even though I'm from Boston or Chicago, whatever. Chicago, not Boston. And so that might be the case. But with most of us, it's not the case. Like you said, no records, no nothing. Hundreds of years of this, mixing and matching and making them bigger and whatever. And so, like Jamaica, Caribbeans.
Do you want to make sure that the camera's
I
still
already did it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you good. Caribbeans will go, well, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from America. But what's your background? And they'll be like, I'm Jamaican. I'm like, okay, so I'm from America, like you're from Jamaica, because Jamaica is not a country in Africa. All right, it's a British colony.
Yeah, and original Jamaicans aren't even black. They're like more like people. South Americans.
They brought slaves.
I went to Jamaica and it blew my mind, because for some reason I just assumed they're all like Usain Bolt.
Exactly.
But they've been wiped out, so they don't even exist anymore.
They don't. No,
it's crazy.
South American black people will say that, like Cubans or Brazilians and all those people. All them, they're just they would say the same thing, and I'm like, dude, you're from Brazil. You're not from wherever you're from in Africa. Like, that's not where you're from.
Part of your identity.
A lot of natives who were here. Even though Brazil's 51% black, that's how many slaves they brought. I keep telling people that's how many fucking slaves. They brought enough slaves to where the population is now 51% black. And that's, I think, maybe one of the biggest outside of Africa like that, because America is only 11% black total.
Yeah, Brazil's genetic makeup is probably one of the most diverse. If you look at the football team, you'll see like the whitest. Some of the players are like the whitest Nazi dudes you've ever seen. Whiter than Scandinavia. The blackest guys. The like indigenous Latin America. Yeah, it's a crazy mix. But so in comparison with the black British experience and the African American experience, I feel you probably have a fairly good view on it because you've lived in both. What do you notice about the types of racism that exist in America? Obviously, it's quite a big question. That's probably quite hard to answer.
The difference between the two, for the most part, is blatant and outward racism. Okay. So America will have subversive, blatant and outward like racism. It'll also have like this weird like kind of liberal racism where it's kind of weird, and it's like different types where you go, okay, there's a lot going on, but you get all the flavors in America. Here, I'm sure it happens, but I've yet to see it happened so blatant. And I've seen the cops like stop and do whatever, and I'm kind of looking like, is that racist? You know, I'm sure it is in some way, but where I've never been walking down the street. Like in America, I've been walking down the street and someone just straight up calls me a nigger. And it's just like, what the fuck are we doing today?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a cop pulls me over and it's not even questions asked. It's immediate gun drawn and abuse. Not even, hey, can I talk to you for a second? There's a guy around here robbing people. Did you see anything? I'm not trying to say it's you because you're black. I just want to know. The incident that happened to me, I was in the Bronx. I was at a comic book store, dude. I came out of a fucking comic book store. And I had comic books and fucking posters with me. And clearly a nerd. And walking down the street. And the cops pulled up. This cop got out the car. He got out the car, opened his door, had his hand on his gun, and looked at me and looked at what I had. And he was like, where are you coming from? I was like, comic
as if you just robbed a fat white kid.
Right. I was like, the comic book store. He was like,
nice try.
Like, yeah, it's like I just robbed like the fucking comic book guy from the Simpsons. And he's just like,
he starts reeling off trivia.
Yeah.
What's your favorite season of Star Trek?
Yeah. So I was just like, yeah, I'm coming from this comic book store, man. And he was like, well, Jesus Christ. I was like, what? He's like, man, I got a call that there's a black guy like walking around the neighborhood doing what I was like,
okay, so he wasn't
awful. Train station.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, he literally was like, man, I'm so sorry. Get in. Sorry about that. And I was like, let me guess, some white person. He was like, yeah, old white lady called and said there was a black guy walking through our neighborhood. And I was like, this is not a neighborhood. This is the street. This is a high road. Lady, you have to also be on the street. Yeah, this is a main street. It's
not residential. Yeah.
This is not where you live. No one lives here. These are shops. What do you do? There's a barber shop right there. They're like, what are we doing? And so, yeah, that was weird. It was the Italian part of the Bronx or whatever the fuck, I guess. Fine. But yeah, so
but then comparatively
keep saying the Bronx, Astoria, Queens. Okay. But yeah, in comparison, it's hard for me because I still have my PTSD from America. Like, I still hear cop sirens and like freak out, or like I'll get a real bad panic attack, or I'll see police walk by me and I get a panic attack, or I'll see somebody in the elevator. Maybe she moves over in the elevator. I'm like, oh, you gonna move because I'm getting in the elevator? But then I'm like, maybe she's moving to make space in the elevator. I don't know what's happening. And so here, when I ask like black British guys, friends of ours, like I ask somebody like Darren Griffiths or Kazim,
Darren Griffith,
Jamal, and I'll say, or Dane Baptiste even, like, what's going on? They'll have stories like, oh, this happened, that was racist, and this was racist. And I go, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Kazim told me a story where he got pulled over. Here's the difference. Kazim told me a story where he got pulled over by the police because his tint was too dark. When he pulled him over, his window tint was too dark. Okay. I believe that's right. Kazim, you correct if not, but there's something. He wasn't breaking any laws, really.
Fine.
Talked to the cop. The cop was like, yeah, give me an ID, give me this, dude. He was like, I don't have to do all that. Like, if you're going to write me a ticket, but I don't have to do all this stuff. And he's like, I'm arguing back with the cop. Just like, I'm not doing nothing. Fuck you. Call whoever, dude. And he said he knew he would just go drive home that night. There was no issue. Okay. He knew at some point the cop's going to stop or arrest him or whatever, but he didn't fear he was going to die. I was like, I've never in my life had that conversation with a cop to where I told him anything disrespectful while he had me detained or was going to detain me, because I'm more like, how can I navigate the situation to not die? Mm-hmm. So that's the major difference that I would see, is that there's definitely racism, racial abuse, and police brutality or profiling and stuff. Yeah. But I don't know if the average black British person, I was going to say black British American, the average black British person fears for their life in the same way that I would, or a black American would, when confronted with some of these things. And I've also noticed that they will be combative back almost like immediately, as opposed to black Americans like, let me make sure this is racist before I get loud, because they're going to call the cops. And so let me make sure what I'm doing is right before I check on this.
It seems from the black British comedians I follow, they're hesitant to, because there's a general consensus that Britain's not as racist as America, or at least not as openly. Right. And I think that probably is true, but black British people are very hesitant to admit it, because they feel like if they do say that outwardly, people will take that as the wrong message. They'll take that as saying that there's no racism in Britain. Because obviously, if it's relative, it's it's hard to be more racist in America, but by making that equation, I think a lot of white people absolve Britain of the racism it has. So that's why people might be quite hesitant. Obviously, if you're stopped by a black person stopped by a police in Britain, I assume would probably not feel half as scared as a black American stopped by police. But by equating them and saying America's worse than Britain, I feel sometimes white people use that as basically saying it's not really an issue here.
Yeah, and I would agree with that because I notice, and to be fair, I've noticed people who were in the industry or in the entertainment industry not speaking up American or British, and I go, that's almost that like weird air of, do I experience the same racism because I'm wealthy, or do I experience the same racism because I'm British? But I like Dane Baptiste again. He's posting all over the place saying everything, and what he's saying is legitimate. And he's coming from a British standpoint. He's lived in America, but he's coming from a British standpoint. Yeah, he's coming from a Black British standpoint of this is still happening.
A huge issue. Yeah,
the issue is if it happens in America and they get away with it, it can happen in the UK and they get away with it because in the UK. 3% of the entire UK is black. 14% of London, but the whole UK is 3% is black. America's 11%.
Outside London, it's a different story.
Exactly.
It's like a different
if they
country.
decided they wanted to be pieces of shit, they could. And
but it just would never happen as regularly.
Exactly. So it's kind of like you have to make this stand now because it does happen. I know it. I know they did they had a riot not too long ago because the cop choked the boy out in the store, right?
Yeah, the London riots. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Tottenham, I think.
Tottenham, yeah. So it's like that is, it tells you that it happens. It's just the rhetoric here hadn't been, another part, maybe this is me being American.
Sure.
English aren't as confrontational.
No, just it characteristically.
Yeah. Not anymore anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not as. It's not.
We have a lot more passive racism.
Exactly. I'm going to go.
We're not going to do it to your face. It's going to be over tea behind closed doors. It's a classier racism,
Or it's going to be like 6 guys at a pub. And then they'll say something, but it's like the black guys say "fuck you." Maybe it'll be something. But a lot of people tell me in the '80s it was more like that. But
I think there's a lot
English
more
are more likely to fight
racism.
a Polish guy over football than they are.
Yeah, there's more. There was a lot more like smashing windows of the Indian guy who ran the newsagents. There was. Right. I think Islamophobia is probably a more open racism.
You guys got more of the recent immigrants,
and there's just more Muslims in the UK than there are.
You guys get the more recent immigrant racism. You know what though? And that being said, in America, no one is racist towards their sports players. Even the most racist motherfucker likes football and basketball and will be like,
So you don't get bananas thrown on the pitch.
No, exactly. No. I watched a documentary where the woman was asking all these Nazis questions. She was like, well, what do you watch? He was like, well, I like everything. She was like, so you like basketball? He was like, yeah. She was like, who's your favorite basketball player? He's like, Kobe. And she's like, what the fuck? Like, look at, you got swastika on your throat. Like, and your favorite basketball player is Kobe? It's like, you have it's weird. And so she was saying that, and he was like, well,
God, imagine seeing clan members gathered around watching a Lakers game.
Do you understand?
Yeah, like Kobe!
They still love football, college football, so they still go, oh man, Texas A&M. I love my fucking Texas A&M. Like, you love the Cowboys.
Yeah.
There's one white guy at maybe, so it's like, that's weird.
Got a KKK hood and a Chicago Bulls jersey.
But
23.
And they'll be like, oh man, I love that Sammy Davis Jr. or I love that fucking one particular black celebrity. Like, what the fuck? But here, it'll be like, this is your team winning. This is Liverpool or Arsenal, whoever. And you're like, I'm throwing bananas and calling them monkeys and shit. And it's like, I'm playing for you. You're fucking. So there's a difference where it's like this.
That's an I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, you can tell.
It is a lot more of a racist atmosphere around sport, which is very.
And other stuff.
I really can't even work out why that might be.
British or European, Western Europeans, somewhat, and not all, but they're good at burying it and being like, we were once a mighty empire. We don't want to talk about our history because that makes us look just as bad as America or anybody else. So we won't teach it and talk about it. But that's when they drink. No one sober at those games comes to the game. Like they premeditate bringing the bananas because they're racist, but they wait until they're drunk to attack, which is kind of like the British kind of thing. It's like, I'm not going to fight you until I'm
no one's he wasn't eating a banana because he wanted potassium
right.
and then thought, I'm going to throw this at a black player. He bought that. He probably bought a spare in case he lost one. Like, his racist wife was like, wait, you forgot your banana. You know,
I'm going to hit, who is it? Who do I know that plays football? Freddie Adu. That's how much I know about football.
Aubameyang.
I'm gonna throw his banana at Pele. That's the one I'm at with it. It's like, why are you throwing bananas? Pele doesn't even play anymore, my dude. Is he alive? Like, why are you throwing bananas at this man? Like, what are you doing? But that's the difference, because you're not gonna throw bananas at a basketball player, because he's gonna come in the stands and he's gonna rape you and all your friends. He's gonna beat you with his dick. His massive basketball player. You're gonna die.
I have heard about the
the basketball players, they know when you disrespect them, they jump in the stands and they hit you in your face.
Well, so I mean, the court's different because
that as well.
It's so close. The court, you can jump. One basketball player can jump further than anyone else.
It's a superhuman, first of all.
You can make it 5 stands in.
You just pissed
with
off
one
Captain
jump
America.
off the
he
court.
He has the powers to get to you and decimate you and all your friends.
In football, there's a lot more anonymity because you're in they're normally bigger stadiums, and there's often Olympic running tracks between you and the crowd.
Same with American football, though. American football is huge like that. You go, they're not going to do this because...
But your sport attitude's different, because if you look at chants and the way we have it's a lot more rowdier mentality, which is it's not saying that they're more or less racist. I just think the mentality at these sports games is a lot more openly tribal, and I don't know why. It's a lot I think in sports games, do different teams sit in different sections of the stands, or do you?
Yes. Hell no. I mean, you can mix. You can mix.
Because in rugby, you mix.
Yeah, you mix. It just depends. So it's home and away games. So if that's how we do it. So if actually a better example is if the New Orleans Saints are playing the Atlanta Falcons, American football, if they're playing in Atlanta, everybody who's a New Orleans Saints fan is going to get in there. And they're not enough Saints fans in Atlanta to get a whole section. So they got to mix. Same thing in New Orleans, same thing anywhere else. So there's going to be fights, there's going to be arguments, but no one's going to die because your team lost. No one's going to go outside and smash your face into a car because your team lost. So that's the racism there. They're not going to go and be like... Patrice O'Neal said something great about that. He was like... football, I forgot who said basketball football player's name. He said his sister is not going to get raped because he fucking lost to get bananas thrown at him.
Yeah.
Because he fucking is not winning. As opposed to the soccer football, European football players it's a lot of abuse they take. And I thought about that. I said, well, is that in other sports like football? Is it in rugby? Yeah. Is it in fucking what's the other? Is it in
cricket?
Cricket? Is it in this, or is it just because even in baseball, it's a bunch of Cubans, and I know Americans don't like you black and Cuban. This is like Jesus Christ, and so. It's interesting. It's just interesting. And that's the difference in the racism is that it's subversive here until they get liquid courage or in a group. And in America, it'll be a lone white dude. There's a guy at the protest with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
It's like in his head, I'm racist Hawkeye. I'm white arrow, racist green arrow. And I'm going to fucking kill these. Like he thought, I'm doing this. You're not going to find that here. You're not going to find at the Black Lives Matter rally here. There's not going to be a white guy, British guy from East London who's going to come up.
I think it's important. It seems, I feel often, because George Floyd happened in America, a lot of the resources and information people are talking about is American racism, which is very important. But it seems... I don't know for sure, but it seems like it's very important to make a distinction because we have quite a distinctively different history of racism here. So the solutions and problems are different here, and the problems need different solutions because they're different problems here.
And that's something I've been thinking about. I've been talking to some people about it and talking about how we can help better organize, and that's 100% correct. The solution to American racism and systematic oppression is very different than the British one because the American system is set up for this. Like in the fucking Constitution, it says black people are, not subhuman.
Yeah.
This is written into the law, right? So it's like this is a very
the most
different
precious
thing.
document in American law.
This is like a very different type of thing that we have to address. It's very different addressing the start of your country, 244 years old. The start of it is purely steeped in racism and hatred and stuff. And a system built to make white guys better away from the English. So of course they're going to be better away from fucking, blacks or whatever. And then the 200 or so years before that, when it was just colonies and ruled, still slavery and racism. So it's this thing that came about that is, as American, some people say this phrase, racism is as American as apple pie and baseball. It is a national fucking pastime. It is what we do. Even
the Native Americans, which gets spoken about.
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, it's terrible what's happening to the African American communities, but you don't even speak about the genocide before slavery.
You don't want to talk about it because you go, there's 6 of them left. You feel bad, but that's
how can you organize with that many people?
Exactly, and that's Fred Hampton again. Back to Fred. Let's get the natives. Let's get the
intersectional
everybody on the new Black Panther. The new Black Panthers are not a follow up to the original Black Panthers. The new Black Panthers is a bit more militant, a bit different in ideologies. No, they're not. They're very different groups, but essentially the same end goal, but very different tactics and stuff. On their site, I remember going to their site before, and on their site it said they have links to like their version, the Native Aboriginal Americans version of that, and the fucking Asian version of that, and the Latino version of that. And they're like, go to these sites. Let's all team up. And come together. So that's again still in line with Fred Hampton's thing. The Black Panthers was still like that. They're like power to the people, Black power to the people, but also power to all the people. We're gonna need assistance because if we could do it alone, it would be done. But when we try to do it, we get attacked. This is not like 300 where 300 guys are gonna take out the fucking
Gerald Butler,
Armenian, the Armenian fucking the ancient Armenians. It's not gonna happen. Like it's not gonna happen that way.
That would be a great twist.
Right.
300 ripped Native Americans came out and said, "Fuck it, let's go.
Let's do it. Just take over." So it's like we need assistance.
And in the film version of it, Gerald Butler would still play the Native American.
Of course, because it's Hollywood.
100%.
But that's what I mean. So we need assistance. So even assistance in Hollywood, even assistance in the lowest levels. If I'm in the store with you, and we're in the store, and you do your transaction before me, and the guy, or after me, and the guy hands you your money in your hand. And then something simple is I hand him my money and I put my hand out and he puts my money on the counter. I'm going to say something. But if you go, in addition to what he said, you're an asshole. And I recognize you're an asshole. And I also won't shop here. And I'll tell people that's how you change it.
What you saying in that hypothetical, as a ally, even though I find that term sometimes misused.
I do too, because I'm like, this is a little weird.
It's the people who use it is normally quite tedious woke people, and I don't want to see them.
It's like vegans. It's like I don't like it. I don't want to.
Yeah, but at the moment it's the best term we have.
Exactly.
But normally people who say allies, because I find sometimes the allyship, there's like this sort of, the far right have a hatred for black people, but then the response by some woke leftists is this sort of deifying of black people to a place where no human could live. So like, I often see white people in podcasts like this, the way they listen to black people is more like, and there's like this sort of, I don't know, there's something.
Yeah, no, I know.
I can't quite put my finger on it, but
it's not insidious. But I know what you mean, and I agree with you,
and they're trying their best, but it feels patronising or
it's still like
unproductive when you can have a good conversation. Or like else.
So like ally is like the woke version of when people say I'm gonna invite you, got an invitation to the barbecue, like this black barbecue that's supposed to mythically happen, and the white guy who's like Eminem or woke or whatever, he come to the barbecue. Did you see that white man do pop lock? He's come to no, he can't come to. There's no barbecue. First of all, that's not the main party that we're having. Secondly, it's like that. It's a pass. Like when you hear, I've been called an ally. It's almost like if I'm like, what up, my nigga? People are like, oh, this guy likes me. But I say nigga all the time because where I'm from. So I'm not thinking of it like, oh, fuck with you. People who I don't like, I say nigga. I've been in arguments with older white women. I'm like, nigga, shut the fuck up. And I'm not like,
But it's like you saying it's so colloquialized. It's like me saying mate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but it's like the ally is like it gives some people the same like, I got my black pass. I'm good. I'm not racist. I was called an ally. It's like that's.
I mean, both you and Dane are going to be on a lot of podcasts with like a little square with white people listening, hoping that it makes it look like they've got a free pass.
But you know what it is?
Sorry, just so you know, we got like about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll say
but
this
I've really enjoyed this, and if you are free, I would love to, because I feel we haven't even touched upon a lot of stuff. This has been an amazing conversation.
But
I think we've got a lot more to talk about.
We'll do another one.
But I'd love to do another one as well.
We'll do another one.
But if you could wrap up.
I'll bring more information. And
the relevance
dates and statistics
Fred,
of things.
If you could wrap up potentially with why you still what you think is relevant about the lessons that he taught in the 60s to what's happening now, if that's
with Fred, what he was saying was what I truly believe in.
Okay.
I'm my philosophy with this lies 100% with Fred Hampton.
Okay.
Everything he said, that's me. It's very rare for me to find someone I 100% agree with. I think there's 3 other people on the planet that I've ever 100% agree with. Malcolm X post Nation of Islam.
Is your camera still running, by the way? Is your camera still running?
Good, yeah. When he left the Nation of Islam, all that stuff I agree with, because he went, like he said, I went to Mecca, I saw white Muslims and this and that. And I'm not saying we need to do this utopian unity thing right now, because there needs to be black leadership, black examples, black excellence, this needs to happen. There needs to be a group and some organization that we all need to have. But what I am saying is to alienate people who are willing to help and willing to die with you and be hurt with you would be a mistake. In my personal, if you can convince me otherwise, convince me otherwise. But in my personal thought process, that would be a mistake, because there's people on both sides that are going to be your enemies and your friends. Why not have as many friends as you can have against a common enemy? And have them in a position of, okay, you don't lead, follow us, but come on, we're going to do this. And so with Fred, everything he said in the 60s is the same thing now. This man, they killed him at 21. And everything he said by that time is exactly what's happening now. They're tearing down the neighborhoods. They're tearing down the school systems. They don't want you to have this. Prisons, everything. They're locking you up. And we can all come together and stop this, especially black people come together and we lead by example.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely research Fred Hampton as much as possible. I'll come with more stuff about him and other people next time. I have like facts and things like that. We'll go through.
Well, next time, just this. I can't. There's not enough memory to make this much longer. But I think next week would be great to carry this conversation on. We'll do it. And thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me.
It's been really good. Thanks a lot. Well, it's been Boys Gone Wild. I'll try and put down links to donate. There's a march this Saturday I'm going to be trying to get to in Trafalgar Square. And we'll put some. If you could send me some stuff about Fred that we can put in the link below, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Later.
Cool.